I never forgot the sound of that check being signed. $80,000. My parents called it an investment in the family's future. What they really meant was, Evelyn, you don't matter as much as your sister. When I was 18, I wanted to go to college for architecture. I had the grades, the scholarships, and the passion. But apparently, that wasn't practical, not when my younger sister Sophie needed her dream college fully funded. So they gave her $80,000. And me. I got a $25 Target gift card and a pat on the back. I watched as Sophie packed up her brand new suitcases, the same day I signed my offer letter for a local diner job. She drove away in the family's old SUV, smiling. I remember waving and promising myself, one day, she'll need me more than I ever needed them. It took a decade, a lot of pain, and an empire built from scratch, but I kept that promise. Because 10 years later, my sister works for me. And she still doesn't know the half of it.my name's Evelyn. I grew up in Ohio, small town, quiet streets, neighbors who knew everything about everyone. From the outside, my family looked perfect. My dad was an accountant, my mom stayed home, and my sister Sophie was the miracle child. That's what they called her, miracle child. She was born 3 years after me, after my mom had a complicated pregnancy. So, from the moment Sophie arrived, she was treated like royalty. If Sophie wanted ice cream at midnight, my parents would get in the car. If I wanted a new notebook for school, it was "we'll see, honey." By the time we were teens, the favoritism wasn't even subtle anymore. Every picture frame in the house had Sophie's face, her cheerleading trophies lined the shelves. Mine? My debate awards, science fair ribbons, and art sketches. They were in a dusty box under my bed. But here's the thing. I didn't hate Sophie. Not yet. I loved her. I protected her. When kids bullied her in middle school, I stood up for her. When she got grounded for sneaking out, I lied and said it was my idea. I thought love meant loyalty. But for my parents, love meant Sophie first, always. Then came senior year. The year everything changed. It was spring. I'd just gotten my acceptance letter from the University of Michigan, full of excitement, tears in my eyes. I ran to show my parents. I remember my mom's face. She smiled politely, then said, "That's wonderful, honey, but how are we going to afford that?" Dad didn't even look up from his laptop. "We'll talk about it later." Later never came. 2 weeks after, Sophie's acceptance letter arrived, UCLA. The same parents who told me, "We can't help with out-of-state tuition," suddenly found a way to pay for a California dream. They threw her a whole backyard celebration. Balloons, cake, even a photographer. No one even mentioned my Michigan letter again. That night, I overheard them whispering in the kitchen, "We can't split the savings. Sophie's program is expensive. Evelyn can stay local for community college." That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not just sadness. Betrayal. The next day, I packed a single duffel bag and left for the city. No car. No money. Just $87 in my savings and a broken sense of worth. That night, sitting in a cheap motel off I-75, I stared at the ceiling and felt the weight of my entire life pressing down on me. The air smelled like cigarettes and bleach. My phone buzzed with one new message, from Mom. "We're worried about you. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Harder than it needs to be. They'd just invested $80,000 in Sophie's future, and left me to rot. Still, I couldn't cry. I didn't want them to think I'd failed. So, the next morning, I walked into every diner and cafe downtown until someone hired me. The third place I tried, Benny's Breakfast Bar, said yes. The pay was minimum wage, but it was a start. I was 18, living in a rundown apartment with a roommate I found on Craigslist, working double shifts, just to afford instant noodles. Every night, I'd see college students in their sweatshirts laughing over pancakes, kids who looked like the version of me that never got to exist. I tried calling home a few times that first year. Mom would answer, talk about Sophie's classes, her new friends, how happy she finally seems. Dad would sometimes get on the phone, only to remind me to make good choices. Not once did they ask if I was eating, or if I was okay. But here's the thing about being ignored your whole life, you learn to survive in silence. One night, during a late shift, a regular customer, a quiet guy who always ordered black coffee, left a business card on the counter. Jason Miller, graphic designer. He said, "You've got a good head on your shoulders, Evelyn. Ever think about doing something creative?" I laughed it off at first. But when he showed me how he freelanced online and earned triple what I made, I stayed after hours, asking questions. Jason became my first mentor and later, my best friend. He taught me design, branding, and how to build a business from a laptop. For the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's disappointment. I was becoming someone. Still, every time I sent an invoice, or signed a small contract, I'd whisper to myself, this is one step closer to $80,000. One step closer to reclaiming everything they stole from me. It had been almost 5 years since I'd spoken to Sophie. I'd built a steady freelance career with Jason, moved into a small, but cozy apartment, and finally felt free. The silence from my family had become comfortable, like a healed scar I didn't touch anymore. Then, out of nowhere, Sophie called. At first, I thought it was a prank. Her name flashing on my screen felt surreal. My hand actually trembled before I answered. "Evelyn. Oh my God, it's really you." Her voice was sugar-coated, but shaky underneath. "Mom said you're doing some design stuff now, right? I might need your help." Just like that. No apology. No, I've missed you. Straight to I need something. She told me she was starting a boutique clothing brand in Los Angeles. Her college degree had turned into a vague, creative direction, career that didn't pay bills, and she needed a website and branding. She wanted me to help out, like sisters do. I wanted to hang up. Every part of me screamed, "Don't do it." But Jason said something that stuck. Sometimes the best revenge isn't saying no. It's showing them what you've become. So, I agreed. I told Sophie my rate. A professional one, not a family discount. She paused, then laughed awkwardly. "Wow, you're expensive now." "Quality always is," I replied. For the next few weeks, we worked together over calls and emails. Every interaction reminded me how nothing had changed. She'd send half-baked ideas and expect magic overnight. If I didn't reply within an hour, she'd text Mom, who'd then message me things like, "Can't you just help your sister without being so difficult?" The favoritism was alive and well. But this time, I wasn't the powerless one. I sent professional invoices, signed contracts, and kept everything on record. When Sophie tried to skip payment, because it's family, I calmly forwarded her the signed agreement. That was the first time I heard real fear in her voice. "Evelyn, you wouldn't actually. I already filed for late payment penalties," I said. "It's just business." That's when it hit me, the power had shifted. For years, I was the forgotten one. Now, Sophie needed me to keep her dream alive. A year later, I got an email I almost deleted out of habit. Subject line, "Need to talk, urgent." It was from Sophie. By then, my small design agency, Evelyn and Company, had grown beyond what I ever imagined. Jason and I had built a team of 6 people, handling branding for local businesses and startups. We weren't rich yet, but we were thriving. Sophie, on the other hand, was not. When I opened her message, my heart did a strange mix of pity and satisfaction. Her boutique brand had collapsed. Investors pulled out, her co-founder disappeared, and she was drowning in debt. She wrote, "I don't know where else to turn. Can we talk?" For days, I debated ignoring it. Part of me wanted her to feel the same isolation I'd felt at 18. But Jason said softly, "You can't heal by watching someone else break." So I agreed to meet her, at a cafe downtown, the same kind of place I once served coffee in. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. The confident, polished girl who once left for UCLA now looked fragile. Her voice trembled when she said, "You look amazing, Evie." We talked for hours. She cried, apologized, and admitted things I never thought I'd hear. Mom and Dad shouldn't have done what they did. I know now how unfair it was. They still baby me, and it's made me weak. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But there was something in her tone, not guilt, but desperation. She wasn't there to make peace. She was there because she needed something. And I was right. At the end of our coffee, she hesitated before saying, "Evelyn, I need a job. Anything. I heard you're hiring." My jaw nearly dropped. My sister, the golden child who once told me I was too ordinary for college, was now asking me for work. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, trying to decide what felt stronger, the ache of old wounds, or the thrill of poetic justice. Finally, I said, "Send me your resume. We'll see if there's a fit." Her eyes widened. "Wait, seriously? It's business, Sophie. Not charity." She nodded, smiling weakly. She had no idea what she'd just walked into. Sophie joined Evelyn and Company 2 weeks later. Her official title: Junior Assistant, Marketing Department. I could have made her an intern, but that would have been too obvious. I wanted her close enough to see my success, and far enough to understand she no longer held power over me. When she walked into the office on her first day, dressed in her old designer blazer and forced confidence, my team had no idea who she was. I introduced her like any other hire. "Everyone, this is Sophie. She'll be helping with campaigns and outreach." Not my sister. Not the reason I almost gave up. Just Sophie, employee number 7. Watching her adjust was fascinating. She struggled with structure, missed deadlines, and bristled when she realized people weren't impressed by her charm. She'd been raised to believe she could talk her way through anything. But in my company, skill mattered more than smiles. Still, I wasn't cruel. I didn't yell, didn't humiliate her. My revenge wasn't about shouting, it was about silence. About her realizing, day by day, that the tables had turned. Sometimes, I'd catch her staring at my office through the glass wall, the office with my name on the door. The same girl who once laughed when I said I wanted to run something big now fetched my coffee orders and filed my contracts. She tried to bridge the gap a few times. "Evie, maybe we could hang out this weekend. Like old times." I'd smile politely and say, "Sorry, I've got meetings." She didn't realize that meetings usually meant me sitting at home, reading a book in peace, something I never got growing up. Jason noticed the tension too. One night, as we locked up, he asked, "You sure this isn't eating at you a little?" I thought for a moment before answering. Maybe. But it's also healing me. Because every email she sent me with "Evelyn, please advise," was another stitch closing an old wound. But karma has a cruel sense of timing. Just when I thought I'd finally moved past it all, when my revenge felt complete, Sophie made a mistake. A big one. One that could destroy everything I'd built. It started with a simple email. One Sophie wasn't supposed to send. She'd been handling client outreach, and one morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls, all from our biggest client, Harrison Tech. When I opened my inbox, I saw it. Sophie had accidentally attached an internal document, our pricing sheet, with confidential rates and strategy notes, to a client proposal. It was a catastrophic breach. If that document got out, we could lose every competitive edge we had. I stormed into the office. She was pale, trembling, already crying. "Evelyn, I didn't mean to. It was an accident." For a second, I saw the little sister I used to protect. But then I remembered the years of being told she deserves more. My entire team watched in silence as I said, "An accident doesn't erase responsibility, Sophie. You compromised this company." She begged me not to fire her. "Please. I'll fix it. I'll do anything." It was the same desperation I once felt when I begged Mom and Dad to believe in me. And now, the choice was mine. I told Sophie to sit down. My voice was calm, but inside, a storm raged. Part of me wanted to end it, to fire her on the spot, and let her feel the sting of rejection I'd lived with for years. But another part of me, quieter yet stronger, whispered something else. "You're not them, Evelyn." I took a breath and said, "You'll stay. But under probation. You'll report directly to Jason. And every mistake from now on. You own it." Her eyes widened, not in gratitude, but confusion. "You're not firing me." "No," I said. "I'm giving you what no one ever gave me, a second chance." She started crying again. But this time, they weren't tears of panic, they were something deeper. Maybe realization. Maybe shame. After that day, Sophie changed. She came in early, stayed late, asked questions. She worked, really worked, for the first time in her life. And I watched, silently, as the golden child finally learned what struggle meant. But I didn't expect what came next. Because a few weeks later, Sophie walked into my office holding a letter, one that would change everything between us. Sophie stood in my office doorway, clutching a folded envelope like it was the last thing keeping her upright. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. "I'm resigning," she said. "I got an offer in Seattle, marketing coordinator. It's small, but I earned it myself." I didn't say anything for a long moment. I just looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, I didn't see the spoiled little sister who took everything. I saw a woman who'd finally learned what it meant to stand on her own. She placed the letter on my desk and whispered, "You were right to be angry. But, thank you for not giving up on me." And then she hugged me, a real hug. Not the shallow ones from family holidays, but something raw, human, and trembling with truth. After she left, I sat alone, staring at the empty space where she'd stood. For years, I'd dreamed of revenge, of making her pay. But what I felt now wasn't triumph. It was peace. Still, there was one more chapter left, one that would finally close the circle for good. The call came late that night. Mom's voice was soft, almost hesitant. The same woman who once dismissed my dreams now sounded small. "Evelyn, your father and I saw Sophie's new job post online. We're proud of both of you," she said. "You've built something incredible." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Years of silence, of pain, of being the forgotten daughter, and now, they were finally acknowledging me. "Thanks, Mom," I said quietly. It took a while. She hesitated before adding, "We didn't realize how much we hurt you. I hope someday you'll forgive us." When the call ended, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, watching the city lights flicker outside my office window, the office I built from nothing. Sophie was thriving, my company was stable, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was chasing validation. I'd already won. Not through revenge, but through resilience. Still, every time I walked past that framed photo on my wall, me standing in front of Evelyn and company, I'd whisper the same words that started it all. They gave her $80,000. I gave myself an empire.